Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Emily.
And we are the hosts of the I Don't Think So podcast. Each episode, we discuss a different story, theory, or mystery and decide if we think it's believable or if we really don't think so.
Here at the I Don't Think So podcast, we are affiliated with Flurry Sports, and we present our theories on your favorite place to listen to podcasts every Wednesday. If you like what you hear, give us a rating, leave a comment, and follow us on our socials at I Don't Think So _EH, or check out our YouTube page at IDTS Conspiracies.
Woo! Happy New Year!
Happy New Year! Hope you all had a very happy holidays. Enjoyed the time, hopefully off of work or spending time with family, friends, whatever the heck you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Curled up, stayed warm, all the things.
Yeah, we had pretty nice weather, but it makes me a little scared for our future.
I don't like it. Well, this morning it was like freezing fog,
Oh, it was
and I
awful.
was like, this is
scary.
awful.
Mhm.
I literally at one point was like, if someone walked out, I'd hit them.
Yeah, well, I couldn't see anything.
I would smooch them. There'd be
We
no
have
way.
these new cameras at our house, though. So every once in a while, we'll get like little notifications that people are walking by, and it was like fog. And I was like, "Oh, we're just getting notifications from the fog," and all of a sudden, there's just a cat in front of one of our cameras, and I was like, "Hello, do you want to come in?"
Not just the fog. Got it.
Mhm.
Hello, kitty.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun.
It is fun. I know. I was happy we had snow on the ground for Christmas
Yeah, I agree.
because we didn't last year. It was like 90 degrees out still. But I'm not mad that it's not here now.
One, I always tell people like, "I want snow for Christmas, and then it can go away," and it did, and I was like, "Oh."
I've done it.
But I was like, "This is a little scary."
I don't like. Well, you know the old wives' tale of like the woolly caterpillars.
No.
Well, the black and orange ones,
Yes.
where it's like the more black they have, the harsher the winter.
Has it been, or were they mostly orange this year?
Or it's like if they have like a short orange, long black, short orange. Like it depends on like you'd have to look it up, but it's like if it's a short orange and then a black and then a like a long orange
Mm-hmm.
means like it'll be a rough front of winter. Like you,
Sure, like the black is the stuff.
the black is the shit. And this year I saw like 2 fully black ones, and I was like, no.
We're not gonna pay
But I
attention
just saw
to
one
you.
the other day that was like pretty even, so I was like,
Okay,
okay,
we'll take that.
I'll take an even.
An even winter. I did hear
It was
So,
dead. I don't know what that
La
means.
Nina means that our winter is going to be warmer because of the warm winds coming from the ocean. So scientifically, we are
Should be
supposed
warm.
to have a warmer winter, but sometimes with La Ninas, you get a lot of snow.
Well, because sometimes it's too cold to snow.
Right.
So when it's like hovering at that like 30 to 32,
You get lots
you
of
get
snow.
lots of snow.
I feel like ours has been very back and forth, back and forth. It's been either really hot or really cold. We're hot and we're cold.
We're yes and we're no. We're in and we're out.
Up and down.
It's wrong when it's right.
It's black and white.
We fight, we break up.
We kiss, we make up. Good
Good.
connection. Well, I look at this segue. I was had the honor of finding a new theme, and I have been watching tons of TikToks while I still have the chance.
Oh, well, it's still there.
And there's this whole TikTok like thread of people discussing conspiracy theories that they genuinely like fully believe in. And it's not necessarily all conspiracy theories, but it's just like different social theories and like explanations of things. And there's a few of them on there that I was like, I really like this. So you can kind of pick any conspiracy theory or theory that you believe in.
So many.
But I genuinely think that this is like, there's this theory that I'm going to talk about. It's rooted in different like spiritualism and like things like that. But I'm like fully invested.
Oh.
So have you ever heard of the invisible string theory?
Yes and no. I've heard of it. Do I know anything about it? No.
Perfect. So the invisible string the invisible string theory
Hubba-da-hubba-da-hubba.
is like used to describe the idea that your person in life, so like your partner, your soulmate, your soul tie, your best friend, someone super important to you, is always present in your life's path, even when you haven't necessarily met them yet, or when you're not in each other's lives. And it's not like strictly romantic partners, but it can apply to anyone you share like a deep connection with. So examples of this would be like experiences of crossing paths with that person long before you connected on a more personal level, or being in the same place or the same places as someone years before you properly met them. And it's all kind of tied back to this idea of like fate, divine timing, and coincidence. But aside, like it's supposed to say that if you find these like invisible string connections with these people, it's meant that you're supposed to like really have deep ties to each other, and that you're like meant to be in each other's lives. So it's like we often feel the closest to the people that we feel we really know or see or understand us. And discovering some of these elements of the invisible string theory can help you feel more connected with your partner. So according to Skinner, who's
Skinner, the psychologist.
Eloise Skinner, yes, the psychotherapist, she did some different research and things on it, and she shares that there's like a large popularity of this concept of invisible strings, and it's not a recent phenomenon, even though it's like popped off on TikTok.
Now that everyone's talking about it.
So it draws from a range of influences spanning philosophy, physics, and East Asian folklore. And it's the idea of the invisible string actually nods to the ancient belief of the red thread of fate, which connects two souls destined to be together. So it's like they said there's like other relations in the Jane Eyre novel describing a string nightly knotted around or under left ribs that bind people together. And so it's like you don't necessarily see it, but there's clues that show this like undeniable force between these two souls. And they say for many long-term couples, it's a bond that has kept them tied together for years. No matter like how you put it, all these influences kind of like draw these souls together. They're destined to be intertwined, drawn together by cosmic force, and it kind of always guides them together. And so they said if you'd like a more tangible explanation, as a metaphorical concept that is open to you to interpret, it said that possibly in the more straightforward sense, that people you have a deep, meaningful connections with are often people that you share values, priorities, and preferences with. And it might not be totally unusual or out of the question that you were visiting similar places or having similar experiences in years before you met each other. Still, these strings show up in people's lives in all kinds of ways, less coincidentally and appearing more inexplicably, proving why the theory continues to transcend time and generation.
Right.
Because people have like real life connections with these things. So I also pulled a bunch of different examples, and I have one in my own life.
I'm so excited.
So
I mean, just here, to me, it always kind of makes sense, like that your people, whoever that soulmate is, whether that's a soulmate like platonically, there it goes, like a best friend or a person that way, or even like your person, your partner, whoever that may be. It's interesting to like how many times you've heard like, and then I went here and we somehow like talked about we did this at the same time as children, and it's like, huh?
Isn't that crazy? That's a lot of these. It's like we met as children, we did this as children, and somehow like found our way back to each other. And I always think of people saying like, it's such a small world, and it's like, well, is it, or was there this like invisible string pulling you guys together? Yeah. Because some of the things where it's like, you might have, like, there's certain things where I think about people being like, we were met by fate, but we only live 10 miles down the road. And it's like, well, the chances of you meeting each other at some point were probably pretty high versus like other things. It's like, you just happen to meet or whatever. So here are some real life examples. My mom passed away when I was 13. Turns out my fiance's mother had unknowingly been friends with her in high school, and my fiance's mom didn't make the connection that she knew my mom until one day I was randomly showing her pictures of me and my mom's Facebook, And when she saw the picture of her, it was like everything clicked. She said, "Oh my gosh, I knew her. We were friends." So it's like this connection from long ago. Here's another one that I thought was really cool. Her name's Leah Menzies, who is a 20-year-old college student in Australia. And she was sharing the story about how this was the first time she was meeting her boyfriend's family. So she like nervously entered the boyfriend's home, anticipating like there would be a lot of like traditions of meeting the parents that are kind of scary the first time. But as she started, it all kind of started that way. But the mom ended up bringing out some old pictures of her boyfriend as a kid to kind of show like, this is what he looked like when he was young. And they're going through all this stuff, and it all seemed pretty ordinary and normal. And as they're flipping through the first couple of pages, they stumbled upon a picture of his kindergarten class. And she said it was full of unfamiliar faces except one. Standing beside her now boyfriend was his then teacher, who'd happened to be her late mother.
Oh my God.
And so when Menzies was only 7, her mother passed away. And she never imagined that her mom would have been able to meet her future boyfriend.
Aww.
And now she can proudly say that her mother did. And this is why she believed it's like this invisible string that pulled them together. She was meant to kind of meet this boy and fall in love because her mom had kind of like guided him along the way.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, I thought that was really sweet. There's a couple other short ones. It says, "My son's girlfriend had always been like a daughter to me. Over the years, I've loved her like she's one of my own. Years later, I'd come to find out that I helped deliver her the day she was born through an old home video footage of her birth."
Oh!
And I'm like, if you're a labor and delivery nurse.
That's cool.
I'm like, that's kind of crazy.
I love that they're like, this is me being born.
I know. Which is kind of wild.
Would never.
My husband and I found out through old photos that my parents and husband's parents lived on the same street at the same time before we were even conceived, and we didn't meet until after college.
Aww.
I broke my husband's finger on the playground when we were children. No joke. We were 6, maybe 7, playing kickball, but the weirdest part is we both left Michigan, where it happened, and then re-met in LA during college. And we were talking about broken bones on one of our first dates, and I was like, wait, this sounds really familiar. And it ended up being me who broke his finger.
Like, wait a minute. I broke somebody's finger. Yeah. Look at that.
2 years before my boyfriend and I met in Baltimore, I worked as a server at a restaurant in Chicago. He happened to eat there once and still had a photo of the receipt from that visit because he tends to hoard photos, and he was the one who snapped a picture of the total for his friend group. And when I mentioned that I worked there, we scrolled through his camera roll, and sure enough, there was the receipt with my name on it.
Oh!
At first, I'm like, you just went to a restaurant, but I'm like, oh, that's nice.
You were a server.
I thrifted some old plates from an estate sale, and I found out a couple of years later that they were my girlfriend's grandmother's. I'm like, that's kind of weird, but kind of nice.
I love thrifting, so I get it.
Mm-hmm. I have a photo of my boyfriend and me together at 12 or 13, and we didn't officially meet until we were 25, but it wasn't some background of a photo at Disney World. It was because my friends dared me to take a photo with the cute guy we saw at the movies. And guess what? The cute guy turned out to be my current boyfriend. 4 years later, I found a little piece of history buried in my iPhone.
Weird.
Isn't that weird?
Weird. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. My boyfriend and I had a Facebook message about an end table on Facebook Marketplace. I told him my selling price, and he left me on red. We met years later and are now engaged. But isn't that funny? Our first exchange was something like, "Hi, is this still available?" Yes. So I found some other ones, but I figured I'd share my experience. So this actually happened with Dan and I. I don't know if I've told you this.
I feel like I know where you're going, but I'm not sure.
So my husband and I didn't ever actually meet each other until we were freshmen in college. And the actual circumstance of us meeting wasn't that weird. I was in one freshman orientation group, and his roommate / best friend was in my group, and he didn't like his group, so he hung out with our group most of the time. And he was kind of trying to be a show off, and he gave me a Snapchat, and then I ghosted him. So
girl.
That's all normal and fine. But after we started dating and we started talking about different things, we realized that like we were in each other's lives in different circumstances really early on. It was kind of crazy. So my family always took trips up to Canada every summer, and we would stop like right by his hometown. And so it's like we were always kind of in the same area, and we're from like 5 hours apart.
Right.
So the odds of us like traveling through each other's towns is pretty weird. But I just thought that was
Especially
cool.
since you're both from such small towns too.
Yes, exactly. And then later on, we found out that he was in band growing up,
Mhm.
and he played in his school's jazz band. And he actually would come down close to our hometown in Eau Claire and perform at Jazz Fest. And so he and I competed against each other in jazz band all through high school, and had no idea of each other's existence. And there's one year that his school won, and he performed at the concert. So I watched my future husband play the drums.
Like,
And had no idea that that's who he was, or that we'd ever cross paths or anything like that again. And so just different instances of things, we'll like talk about stuff. I'm like, that's crazy, because we both had this connection
yeah.
before ever even meeting. And like, I really never thought that I'd end up with some guy from northern Minnesota, pretty much Canada, and then convincing him to move back home. So
Move this way.
yeah. And I was
Calm
like
down.
thinking about your life experience even
Mhm.
too, and with your current partner, and how you have a lot of like
Just odd connections.
strings pulling people together, like just like some of the people you're like, oh, I'm hanging out with so and so, and I'm like, well,
What do you mean?
it's not like, if you take a step back and think about it, it's not that weird, because
We're both from this area.
yeah, but still, to like, there's so many people.
There's so many, or like, talk about like, I showed cattle growing up and whatever, and he mentioned not that long ago, he goes, did you have this like white cow that did really well, like mostly white cow?
Yes.
And I was like, huh? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And I pulled up a picture, because there's a picture of me showing, and he goes, I watched you show that year. He's like, I remember walking in
Mm-hmm.
and seeing you show. And I was like, oh! 'Cause I looked a fucking mess, because I'm in all white, covered in
Mhm.
snot and slobber. And he's like, you look pissed.
Mhm.
And I was like,
If that was me,
I was like, that checks out. I'm like, that cow hated being around me, and I hated being
Mhm.
around her, but she was pretty. And he's like, yeah, I remember that. And I was just like, oh,
that's so fun.
that's weird. Or, you know, like, and yeah, there's a lot of crossover with like people I know and his friends. And even in that sense of like, yes, we both grew up in this area. A lot of his friends are like people who didn't go to school with him, or
Right.
like he should really know all that well. And he's like, oh, I was in so-and-so's wedding. And I'm like, oh, I like hang out with that person a ton in the summer.
Regularly, yes.
Like all the time.
I've seen that person regularly since I was like little. And like didn't know how these paths would intertwine and like find each other and things like that. Because he, like, I feel like he was always kind of around the different things that we did growing up, but wasn't necessarily like involved.
He wasn't involved in any of the things.
And then for you guys to like still find each other
Mhm.
and have, he was friends with the people that we liked.
I know.
It's
Why?
like the worst is like you get there and you're like, oh.
Oh, you're friends with those ones.
And you're like, oh no.
You know, this is throwing up a few red flags for me.
Honestly, that's true.
No, I just like, it's funny because I'm like, I remember when he messaged me on Facebook, in case anyone's curious how we met. Messaging me on Facebook was like, you're pretty. And I was like, oh, okay. But I genuinely thought I knew him.
Right.
Because I was like, I think I've seen him around before. I think I know him.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it might be just me convincing myself that I knew him.
Or it's your invisible string
Or it might
pulling
be
you
my
guys
invisible
together.
I also am fully convinced that Grandma Norma's
Sent him.
pulling some strings upstairs, because
I agree.
I was like, you know, I moved back home in that time span. I now
Mhm.
found a partner who is absolutely great and shares a lot of attributes with our grandmother in a lot of weird ways.
And just our family in
And our
general.
family in general.
Yes.
He's a farmer, which I'm sure she's thrilled about. And got a new job, and I was like, ooh, she's putting in overtime for
She's
me.
like, you need some help.
She's like, oh my God, you're not doing so hot on your own. Let me help you out.
She's like, I'm just giving you the boost. I'm pushing you in the right direction.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. Just my mom and I went to the mall this weekend
Mm-hmm.
because I needed to still get Christmas gifts for a few people.
Oops.
I was like, let's do it now.
Might as well.
And saw this neighbor that we know from church and things like that. And it just like came up in conversation. And she was like, your grandmother is putting in the work.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks, Marcia.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I fully believe in like soulmates and fate and string theory. And I think like within that, it makes so much sense to me that like the person you're supposed to be with, like the overlaps you're going to have
Mm-hmm.
is just like, I feel like is necessary in so many ways.
When I get the whole, like, some people are like, well, you just like find people because you have similar interests or similar values. And it's like, yes, but I feel like when they're truly meant to be, you have those weird, like, small world, like, moments that, like, there's no other explanation. And I feel like that's why I like this theory so much, because normally it's a good one. You're like, this is great. Like,
Yeah.
so not all conspiracy theories or theories out there are very positive.
What do you mean? The Sunshine Project, the one with the babies
Oh, yeah, that's bad.
and the radiation poisoning.
Yeah. This is a little more lighthearted.
A little more nice.
Mm-hmm. Feel like we need a little positivity going into 2025.
God, please. Amen to that. You know? Yeah, I just, or like even with like friends that you meet along the way,
Right.
you know, I think of some of my college friends and things like that, like just the weird connections you'll pick up all of a sudden. You're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
weird.
It's weird.
Weird how you found your way into my life.
Exactly. Well, I have a few more to go out on, and if you have any other thoughts, you can add to it.
Beautiful.
So it says, not sure if this counts, but my parents had their first kiss in front of a statue in the park, and decades later, I visited the park and took pictures. And I was recently talking to my friend about my parents and their love story in the park, and my friend whips out their phone and shows me an almost identical picture to mine. Before we had even met, my friend was in the same park that I was in and felt compelled to take a picture of the statue, and we figured out that we were just days apart there.
Oh,
I'm like, that's kind of fun. Mhm.
I love it. Compelled to take a picture. That was cool.
Yeah, that was cute. My husband and I worked for 8 years at the same shopping center, and I worked cashier at Walmart, and he was head cashier at Lowe's next door.
Ooh.
Statistically, I had to have sold him his lunch at some point. But we say that we met in a Spanish class our final semester at college, a class I ended up in because I missed one question too many on the final and had to retake.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, you'd like think that you'd find each other at some point, but there you go.
I always wonder sometimes too if like, you know, you see people all the time, and then those like fleeting moments, you almost wish you like could go back in time to that like concert, you
Mhm.
know, where Dan was playing, your husband, and you almost want to like see through your eyes then, like
How you viewed it.
Was there ever a moment where you were like, the drummer's kind of cute?
I know.
Or like me at the fair, was I ever like, I walked by Jared and was like, oh,
He's cute.
he's cute.
Yeah.
Like, or was it genuinely just like,
Complete obliviousness.
or like vice versa? Was he
Yes.
like,
Oh, she's in the audience looking beautiful.
she looks nice out there. I'm gonna play this drum solo. Or
Yeah.
like even the, you know, you look pissed. I remember being like, but did I look nice? Do you remember?
I was waiting for him to be like, you looked cute. I'm like, that's BS.
That's a lie. He's like, you looked pissed off and tired. And I
See,
was like,
that's why I think it's more believable that he was there.
accurate. I was like, you know what? You're not wrong.
Right? Here's a cute one. My friend lived in a different country and I visited. Fell in love with the city that she lived in. One day, while walking around taking pictures, I took a picture of a cool building, and that's when I decided I'm going to live here one day. I had this picture as my phone background for a while and thought about it a lot. COVID pushed back my timeline, but eventually I moved there and started a new job. And when I sat down at my desk on the first day, the view from my window is the same building I took a photo from, pretty much at the same angle.
Wild.
And I'm like, that's kind of cool.
That is really neat.
And then someone commented, that's giving me chills.
I appreciate you, person. You know what? Because, yeah, that is cool. Or, do you ever, it's just that weird feeling of, like, rightness
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like comes with this theory.
And that's what I like, too, because, like, it's not always necessarily, like, people or things, but it's, like, I like this idea of, like, this is meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And you might see yourself on one path or have ideas of like, this is going to be my future with this person in this place at this job. Like, you feel like, I don't think people make a lot of decisions thinking it's going to be a bad decision. Like,
No.
People are trying to make good decisions, and when it doesn't work out, it can feel so defeating. And the idea of this is like your place and time is coming. And I just feel like I need to do a better job sometimes of realizing that, like, things will happen when they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a better positive outlook on life and don't feel like you need to rush or make this, like, perfect thing work, that, like, the good things will happen to you. And so, I don't know. I just feel like that's a good viewpoint going into this next year.
Going into 2025, yeah. This idea that, you know, when it's time, it'll come, and when it's right, it'll be there. And that's a nice outlook. It's definitely hard sometimes.
Oh,
I'm
100%.
like,
we're doomed.
what do you mean it's not right here, right now, as I want it perfectly,
Mhm.
wrapped in a bow and done? But definitely that funny little thing of, like, timing.
Mhm.
Well, I certainly believe in, like, right person, wrong time.
Yes.
You know, like, I'm telling you right now, if I met Jared when he was 19, I would have hated him, you know? Or,
Right.
like, had you met Dan at 17, would you have
Mhm.
liked him at all, you know?
Well, that's what we talk about it all the time. We're like, if we would have met in high school, we would have hated each other.
Loathe.
And even, like, when we first met, I'm like,
Loathe.
not loath, but I'm like, this guy
Loathing.
is like, to me, I was like, I think you're faking it, which he kind of was. And so was I.
Tolerated loathing.
And so then we found each other at the right time in our lives and got what we needed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look at us.
You know, you hit
8
that-
years later.
Holy cats.
Almost.
You're almost a decade in with the same person.
I'm going to have graduated from high school for 9 years this year.
Shut up!
That means you're at 8.
Shut up!
So we were talking about that like literally the other day, and we're like, oh my God. But then his parents were like, yeah, we graduated 50 years ago then. And I'm like, okay, it feels bad.
No, I know that 10-year reunion's creeping up on me, and I am feeling the gray hairs starting to come already.
Yeah, so.
Oh my God. That's horrible. That's horrible. I don't even know why you'd say that out loud, and I'm upset at you right now.
You know, well, I feel like that's a good way to end the show.
It
Emily
is.
being upset. If you guys have any conspiracy theories or just theories or ideas in general that you are like fully,
Convinced
I believe
upon.
in, you're convinced, we'd love to hear it. I really enjoyed reading through people's different like theories,
Mhm.
and like I'm all in too. Like this,
You know, I'm on board.
you convinced me. I want to be convinced. That's what I want.
I do think so, as we go back to the title of the pod.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yes.
If you guys like what you hear, go ahead, like, share, comment, and follow us on our socials at I don't think so _EH. Hope you had a happy holiday. Have a good new year. But we will see you all next week.
Bye.